Hi everyone. I'm thrilled to introduce you to a novel with an intriguing plot. It depicts a female protagonist named Erica who is in a tight spot, just trying to find the person who leaked the news of her throwing her mate into the cold room. Amidst her efforts, she has to deal with Jerome, her mate. Jerome is convinced that Erica is out to kill his fiancé and is extremely hostile towards her. The tension between them is palpable. I'm burning with curiosity to see how Erica will handle this challenging situation. Let's explore this fascinating story together. Chapter 17, Finding the Culprit. Erica. I strode out of the training ground, an aura of danger and determination radiating from my every movement. The pack members, sensing my mood, bowed their heads as I passed. My face was a mask of cold fury, and those brave enough to meet my gaze quickly averted their eyes, shivering under the weight of my stare. The physical exertion had helped me blow off some steam, and I couldn't help but feel a grim satisfaction. No matter what challenges I faced, I knew I would always remain true to myself. My thoughts briefly flickered to the unnamed male who had caught my interest. I resolved not to force myself on him or attempt to sash his current relationship. If he were to come to me of his own accord, I'd welcome it. Though I knew the chances were slim. The conflict within me was palpable. My wolf and I were united in our refusal to accept him as a mate. Yet a small part of me wondered what circumstances might change our minds. Shaking off these distracting thoughts, I refocused on my primary goal, finding the culprit responsible for the incident that had led to my humiliation. The memory of my friend's actions stung, but I knew their case was different from others who had crossed me. Our relationship was already strained, and I doubted they would ever trust me again. Normally, I would have ensured that anyone who humiliated me lived to regret it. But in this instance, I was wary of making the situation worse. As I walked, my mind raced with potential plans for uncovering the true perpetrator. The pack members around me seemed to sense my murderous intent, giving me a wide berth. I allowed myself a small, dangerous smile. Whoever was responsible would soon learn the consequences of their actions. They would pay dearly for putting me in this position, for damaging my relationships and my standing within the pack. My wolf growled in agreement, eager for retribution. I knew that he said he hated me, but I know for sure that he doesn't. I knew that he was saying all that because he wanted to hurt me. I knew there was no way the mate bound was only acting on me. I knew for sure that he also felt attracted to me, but the fact that he was engaged made him withdraw from me. I sighed heavily as I made my way towards Victoria and Samuel's offices. I knew they were in the office working on the paperwork I was supposed to do. I knew that I would have to return to my old self in order to start doing all the things I have always needed. I met both of them working their butts out with sweat on their bodies. They didn't know when I entered the room because they were both too engrossed in what they were doing to notice me. I cleared my throat, and they both looked up, and they bowed their heads immediately when they saw it was me. "Good morning, Alpha," they both said in unison. "Morning? I need your help," I said, and they both stared at each other before turning to look at me with a naughty smile on their faces. I knew instantly what they were thinking, and I stared at them with a surprised look on their faces. It has nothing to do with that. I knew they thought that I needed their help in helping me set up a place for our, but they don't know what I had been facing, and I'm glad they didn't. I knew they would be worried and would want to go to him, and I don't want that. I knew that he would strongly believe that I did that. I need you to help me find someone. I need you to help me find the person who leaked it out that my mate was thrown into the cold room, I said, and they both stared at me confused. Words have gotten out that my mate was thrown into the dungeon by me, I added, seeing the confusion in their eyes, and they both stared at each other with a shocked expression on their faces. They gawked at me for a few seconds before Victoria decided to break the silence. Who the hell would try to do that? Nobody in this pack should ever try to do that. And as far as I remember, none of the pack members knew about it, and only the warriors who you told to guard his room knew about it, Victoria said, and I stared at her while nodding my head slowly. I couldn't help but smile at what she said. I knew that she was a great beta and would do anything in her power to get everything done. I doubt if I can remember the faces of the guards, I said, and she smiled again. I felt relieved seeing the smile on her face, and that was because I knew she had ways to recognize the guards. We should get going now. Victoria, we need to catch the person, Samuel was saying. But he stopped all of a sudden, like he just remembered something. What are your reasons for doing this? Samuel asked all of a sudden, and I stood transfixed, not knowing what to do or say. I wasn't expecting him to ask about it, but I knew that I'd have to answer him since he had asked about it. I wasn't willing to tell him, but I have no choice but to spill it to him. Jerome knew of this, and he yelled at me because of this. The rumors have spread out of this pack and have gotten to his birth family, and the worst part is that his fiancée has heard about it and has written to him asking about it. But now she does. He blamed me for it and said I let that happen because I want to kill his fiancée, I said, and I stared at Victoria, who had a scornful look on her face. I knew that she was angry and would try to tell him what I had just said, but I knew that there was no way I would let that happen. Let's forget about that and try finding who was responsible for spreading the rumors, I said, and I saw her hesitate for a moment. I knew that she was happy with the way he talked to me. I knew that she would be angry, which is why I didn't want to tell her earlier. I heard her say, I will make him hear from me after we are done catching the culprit. And I chuckled knowing how crazy she can be about me. I'm not ready to make her worse in the situation. We need to get going, we still have a lot of things to do, Samuel said. And I was glad that he had intervened because I knew that she wouldn't leave the spot she was in without anyone telling her. And I doubt if she will do as I have said. I knew she was someone who loved respecting those who are superior to her. But she didn't have anything to do with me. She treats me like I'm her sister, and I'm glad for that. Let's get going, she said through gritted teeth, and I smiled at her. You should gather all the pack warriors, Victoria said, and I stared at her with a raised eyebrow. They won't be here quickly if I do that. It will take long, but if you do, they will be here within seconds, Victoria explained, and I sighed before I mentally linked them. They were here within seconds, just like Victoria had predicted, and I stared at her, urging her to start with whatever she wanted to. I want her to catch the culprit as soon as she can because I can't bear to see my partner angry at me, and most especially to yell at me. I want to know which of you leaked it out that Alpha Erica threw her mate into the cold room, she asked calmly while staring at them with a cold look on her face. She released her auras, and they cowered back in submission. None of them were willing to talk, but immediately after I glared at them, one of them raised his hands. What do you have to say? I asked, and he stared at me with the corners of his eyes while bowing his head. I know who leaked it, he said after a while, and I stared at him angrily. I was hoping he would say what he wanted to say and then we would move on with our investigation, but instead he shortened his word. Who leaked it out? Victoria asked, beating me to it. I was going to ask him first, but Victoria did. The warrior in question sighed heavily while making eye contact with another. He did. I heard him talking to his mate about it, the warrior said, pointing their fingers at someone at their side, and I stared at the latter. You all can leave except him. He will be dealt with seriously for what he has done, I said, and within minutes they all scurried off. Thank you, guys, for your help. I really appreciate it, I said, and they smiled at me. Follow me, I said, and the warrior stood up. As the warrior was walking, he fell to the ground, and I stared around, wondering why he fell down. And my eyes caught sight of Victoria, who was grinning with a mischievous look on her face. I knew with no doubt that she was responsible. I didn't do anything to the warriors, even though I felt angry and wanted to vent my anger on him. I had to restrain myself from doing that because I knew how dangerous it would be to go to Jerome's room with him wounded. I knew he wouldn't be happy with it. I knew that even though we hadn't spent time together. I walked toward his room with Victoria and her roommate trailing behind me. They both don't know what would happen next if I revealed to him that I'm not responsible, but I also knew that things might go wrong. I opened the door to his room, and I met my parents sitting on the couch that was in his room. I stared at them surprised like I couldn't understand what they were doing in his room. Chapter 18, The Truth, Jerome. I was in my room, boiling with anger, when I heard the sound of the door creeping open. I stared around the room with a frown on my face. I couldn't understand why anybody would come to my room. I knew that it must be Erica, and am ready to give her all that's on my mind. Am ready to say anything to make her angry. Am ready to say everything that can make her cry. I couldn't believe she was so cruel to think of something like this. I couldn't believe that this was the same woman who I had been living with under the same roof but in different rooms. I couldn't believe that this was the same woman I had thought I would stay with. I couldn't believe she would be this wicked to try out her trick on Mabel, and am glad that Sandra was there to help her. I can't think of what would have happened to her if she had come here. She would have been dead by now. I felt a cold shiver run down my spine as I thought of her killing Mabel. I don't know what she was thinking when she wanted to plan all this. I knew that she was thinking that I was going to accept her as my mate. How can I accept someone like her as my mate? Someone who is ready to kill another person like her to be my mate. All I could think of was how many terrible things she had done. I have no doubt that she would kill anyone to get what she wants. I then remembered that she brought me here to her pack against my will. She had done that because she wanted me to stay away from my family and also wanted me to be with her. Who the hell is at the door? I yelled angrily after a while. The door was still left hanging open, and I couldn't help but wonder who was at the door. The door to the room was still like before. I walked toward the door with an angry look on my face. I knew that the person at the door was Erica because if she were the one, then she would have entered. I opened the door, and there were Erica's parents standing at the front of the door. Good afternoon. I greeted the grumpy ES, and they stared at each other before turning to look at me. We have been knocking on the door, but we didn't hear your reply, Cynthia said, and I rolled my eyes, not having the mind to chat with them. I was lost in thought. I replied simply, with a frown etched on my face, which they failed to acknowledge. About what? Cynthia asked, and as I was about to reply, her eyes widened with shock. Don't tell me you both had an argument again, Stephen asked, staring at me with a raised eyebrow. Yes, you are right. But she didn't have an argument with me, but I did. She has been getting on my nerves recently, I said angrily as I gritted my teeth. Mind if we come in? We have been stranded at the door for quite a while, Cynthia said, and I stared at her with a concealed, disdainful look. I couldn't help but think of what to do. Sorry. My manners, I said as I walked out of the way, and they both entered the room. I shut the door behind me and I walked in only to see they were now seated on the couch that was in the room. Mind discussing what the problem is between the both of you? Stephen asked in his deep baritone voice. I wanted to resist answering the question he asked because I knew that they must have heard about it. And moreover, it's not been long since I left her room. I knew that she might have gone to them crying her eyes out like a kid. I wanted to resist, but his authority and superiority made me reconsider that. I couldn't help but think of what he would do to me after hearing this. I knew that he would behave exactly the way his daughter would react. She wants to kill my fiancé, I started, and I was interrupted by Cynthia. She can't do such a thing. She isn't as wicked as you have portrayed her, she said, and I stared at her angrily. I couldn't believe that she would still side with her daughter, and I bet that would be possible if she heard all my parts of the story. Sophia, let him complete his words, Stephen said, and I stared at Cynthia angrily. I couldn't help but feel like Stephen is going to support me. Continue, Stephen said, urging me. The look on Cynthia's face was priceless. Seemed he had supported me. I couldn't help but wonder if she was any different from her daughter. I had first thought that she would be a good mother figure to me, but I think I'm wrong. She had purposely let rumors spread that I was thrown into the cold room by her, and now the rumors have reached my old pack. And the worst part is that my fiancé is aware of that, and she knew that my fiancé would want to this pack and would want to have revenge. She wanted her to come to this pack and then she could kill my fiancé, and she would use the fact that she fought back in self-defense, and then she would want me to accept her. I said, rushing my words angrily. My eyes had turned red due to the anger I was feeling inside me, and all I wanted at that moment was to pounce on them and make them pay for their daughter's sins. Your theory is right, but... He was saying but was cut off by his friend. What are you saying? Stephen, can't you see he is bad-mouthing your daughter? But you sit there looking calm, Cynthia asked, and I saw him sigh heavily. You should calm your nerves. We aren't here to make things more fuzzy, but to solve any of their obstacles that's between them. But we only need to give them some advice. Stephen sat as he stared at his partner lovingly, and I couldn't help but wish for that. I knew for a fact that it couldn't happen because there is no way I'm giving their daughter a chance. I was glad that he supported me, but I feel curious to hear the last part of his words. Your theory might be right, but there is no way my daughter would do such a thing. She can't harm innocent people, he said, and I scoffed angrily. How dare he say something like this? I was wishing and hoping that he would support me, but it turned out that he doesn't. I felt my heart ache, but I then remembered that he was her father and they were likely to behave the same. I had thought he would be different, but he isn't. You think you know things and can teach people things, then why don't you teach your daughter first and see if she will listen to you? Your daughter is nothing but a selfish bitch, I said angrily, and almost immediately the door of the room opened, and I saw 4 people enter the room. My gaze hardened immediately when I saw who it was. It was Erica, and not only she but 3 people were behind her. She walked boldly toward me, and I couldn't help but wonder if she was the same person I talked to in the room. Anger surged through my blood, and I couldn't help but want to get revenge on her. But I knew there was nothing I could do. All I can do for now is watch her. I feel angry that she doesn't feel remorseful after all that I have said to her. I knew for a fact that she was guilty of what I had accused her of. How dare you barge into my room like it's your property? I knew it was your pack and I live in this place. But that doesn't give you the right to barge in like you want and leave whenever you want, I said angrily, and she scoffed before turning to look at her parents. She greeted them, and I stared at her scornfully. I brought the man who was responsible for spreading the rumors, and here is his. I don't like the way you accused me earlier, like I was the one who leaked it out, she said, and I couldn't help but chuckle at her childishness. I can see you weren't brought up well by your parents. You should know that whatever happens in this pack technically makes you the one responsible. There is no way you can say you aren't responsible because all the things happening in the pack fall on you. You should have been taught this. I want you to leave my room this instant, I said, and I saw the lady beside Erica wanting to talk, but she was signaled to keep quiet by Erica because she knew I was right. They left the room, leaving me with Erica's parents, and I glared at them secretly with a frown on my face. I want you both out of my room this instant. You are not different from your daughter, I said to their ears, and they stared at me with shock. I'm not someone who disrespects those who are superior to me, but my anger has clouded my thoughts, and all I could think of was sending them out of my room. I feel myself wanting to do more, but I managed to suppress myself. It was as if I was not in control of my body. Get out this instant before I do something we'll both regret, I said, and Stephen ushered his wife out of the room. He stared at me with an understanding look on his face. Chapter 19, I Don't Care, Erica. I couldn't believe all that he said, and all I felt at that moment was anger. I was angry that all I wanted to do was punch him to death. I knew there was nothing I could do in front of my parents. I knew they wouldn't like the idea of me yelling back at him. And I don't want Victoria and her maid or the warrior who told his mate about it to see what I do or say to him. I knew that it might be rumored later, and I don't want such a thing to happen again. After making sure that the warriors were to be dealt with by Victoria and her mate and that my parents were out of his room, I walked towards the room, barging, and there I met him seated on the bed with a towel tied around his waist. I could see water dripping down his hair. I suddenly felt all the anger I had earlier vanish. I couldn't say a thing because I felt my feet go jelly. I had to remind myself why I was in his room. Who did you think you were? Someone with whom you can do away with everything. You don't seem to know what I'm capable of. You don't seem to know that I'm the leader of this pack. What you said can warrant your death wish for disrespecting an alpha. You are nothing but a piece of thrash. I shouted angrily, with fire blazing in my eyes. All I wanted at that moment was to punch him until he died. But I had to restrain myself. You think that the whole world revolves around you. I wanted to clear my name of being the person responsible for what had happened. But you still say I was the one responsible even after seeing all this evidence. You are nothing but an animal. I shouted angrily. What you don't understand is that I know you are responsible for this. You brought him here as an excuse. And how I know that you are responsible is that you went to find him and you returned here shortly. I wouldn't have been here if you hadn't bundled me here against my own wishes, he said, and I felt my heart take. I knew he was right about my bringing him here without his consent, but I had thought that we would work things out between us. He turned his back to look out the window. I saw something on his back that looked like a tattoo, but a weird one. I wasn't interested in knowing what the tattoo was because I was angry, and all I could think of was my anger toward him. I thought that he was bluffing about being engaged to someone until I saw how dead serious he was about it. I had brought him to my pack without asking the alpha about his being engaged. I had thought that they were nothing serious until now. I don't care about all that anymore. You can leave my pack whenever you want. I won't force you to stay. You can even leave today, I said angrily, with anger visibly written in my tone, and I walked out of the room. I knew what I had said wasn't what I wanted, but there was nothing I could do about it. I feel hurt that my friend said something like this to me. He almost called me a monster. I'll do everything in my power to make sure that he leaves this country as soon as possible. I walked into my room with a frown on my face. I wasn't happy with the development, but there was nothing I could do about it. All I want is to exact my revenge on him, but I have made up my mind to stay away from him. I don't want anything to do with him. I sat on my bed with a sad and gloomy face. I buried my face in my lap while reminiscing on what had happened between us. I couldn't help but think of what would become of me. I don't know what would happen if he went to his fiancée. What would I do? I was hurt to know he had a fiancée, but seeing that he is ready to go to any length to keep her safe made me jealous. I could feel all the pain in my heart erupting, and a few lone tears escaped my eyes. My eyes were red, and all I could think of was telling us what to do. I knew I needed to find a way out of this mess, and I guess the only way that can happen is if I can go back to being my normal self. I knew it was the only way to save me some stress. I knew that having to go back to my old self would make me worry less about my mate being with someone else, and not only that, it is the only way that would make me more sane. I knew that if I started wallowing in what had happened, it'd go nowhere. It'll make no progress at all. I walked into the bathroom and took a cold shower before walking into my room. I woke up due to the sound of my alarm, and I sighed heavily while using my finger to rub my eyes gently. A frown was etched on my face as I sat. I shut the alarm off using my hand. I stretched my body and walked into the bathroom to have my bath. I walked out of the bathroom with a towel tied around my waist. I applied lotion to my body and wore my clothes. I walked out of my room with a cold look on my face. I walked towards the pack's dining hall, and I walked towards my seat. I ignored the greetings of the pack members. I watched as they served the food, and I was the first person to be served the food. I had always had my meal in my room since my mate arrived, but now I'm back to my old routine. I'll make sure that nothing goes wrong. I need to act like I have no mate since my mate doesn't want to be with me. I took the first spoon, and the other pack members followed suit before chatting with themselves. I leave the dining hall, and I am met by Victoria and Samuel, who are on their way to their office. "Good morning, Alpha," they both chorused. "Good morning," I replied without expression. I had a straight face, just like I always do. They both knew that I'm not in the mood for chatting, and they didn't say anything. They followed me quietly. "Samuel, bring me those files you told me I needed to see last week," I said to Samuel. "I'll bring them to your office," Samuel said with his head bowed slightly. Soon I reached my office, and they both went to theirs. I sat on the chair in my office, and I saw the heaps of files I needed to check. I knew that my absence from my office was what caused all this. I took one of the files from the table and started going through it. I read through all the letters and did the necessaries. I took another one, and I was going through it when I heard a knock on the door. I lifted my head from the file I was reading, and I saw it was Samuel. "Come in," I said, and he entered my office. "This is the file you requested for," he said, and I sighed heavily, looking from the files on the table to the ones in his hands. "Drop it on the table," I said, and he dropped the files on the table. I went back to reading the files in my hand, but I stopped after a while. I raised my head up, and I saw Samuel still in my office. "What is wrong?" "Spill it," I said to Samuel, and he sighed heavily while fidgeting with his fingers. "I want to ask a question," he said with nervousness on his face, and I knew whatever he wanted to ask wasn't going to sit well with me, but I'm curious to know what it is. "You can go ahead," I said and sighed heavily. "Alpha, what have you done about your mate's matter? I can give you some suggestions and see how it works out," he said, and I stared at him with confusion written in my eyes. "I have decided to move on with my life. What suggestions do you want to give me?" I asked. I knew that wanting to know about it might hurt my feelings, but I still wanted to hear it out. "If you want to know if he has feelings for you or his girlfriend, you will have to make him jealous. His reactions would tell if he had feelings for you," he said, and I stared at him with shock on my face. Chapter 20, Guilt. Jerome. All I can feel now is sadness. All I can think of now is finding a way to apologize to Erica and her parents. I knew my words must have hurt both of them, but it wasn't intentional. I knew that there was no way they could both forgive me easily. I knew that having to know what I did isn't good because all I feel about that is guilt. I feel guilty about the way I talk to them. I knew that she couldn't try something like that, but my rage and anger had made me believe everything. I knew that there was no way I'd be able to ask for forgiveness and that I'd be forgiven, but I'm ready to try that out. I couldn't understand what was wrong with me when I said all those things to her. I feel the need to apologize for what I have done. I feel terrible, and I couldn't stop blaming myself. I knew my words would have hurt her so much, and I'm ready to make amends. I feel angry at Mabel for being the cause of this. I couldn't stop feeling guilty, just like every other day. I woke up with a migraine, which was because I couldn't get enough rest. I feel the need to apologize to Erica, but I doubt that would be possible. I feel like I was lost on an island. I tried hard to block away the images of me yelling at Erica and her parents. I feel guilty, and am ready to make amends. I'm going to go miles to make sure I am forgiven by Erica and her parents. But first I need to beg Erica's parents for what I said the previous day. I knew that I didn't know where I was in the pack, but I was willing to ask someone to guide me to the way to her parents' house. I knew it might be hard for them to forgive me, but I have a feeling that they would. But I don't know about Erica. I sighed heavily as I rubbed my eyes gently with my fingers. I stood up from the bed and let a yawn escape my mouth as I stretched my body. I made my way toward the bathroom, where I brushed my teeth. I removed my clothes, which I threw into the laundry basket, which was in the bathroom. I have my bath, and all I could think of while I was in the bathroom is Erica. I could feel the water hitting my back softly. I couldn't help but think of what she had done to me. I knew that she had given me most things that I lacked in my old pack. In my old pack, I was made to do menial jobs, which were required for Ongeza, but I hated doing that. I have always forced myself to do that, and now in being treated like other pack members, I hardly wash my clothes myself here, and all I do is sleep and wake up. I knew that I was being truthful with Erica, and I regret it all. I knew that she was willing to let me out of her pack, but the truth is that I don't want to. I don't want to leave this pack because I have become attached to it. And not only that, I have an unknown connection with this pack that keeps urging me to stay in it. I would have left immediately some days ago when I fully recovered from the cold room effects. I walked out of the bathroom with a towel tied around my waist. I made my way towards my closet, which was filled with various clothes of medium size. I couldn't understand how they got my measurements, but I guess they did that while I was unconscious. I stared at my clothes, and I took out a pair of black jeans and a blue shirt. I dried my body with the towel tied around my waist. and I wore the clothes I had selected earlier. I sat on the bed waiting for the arrival of the lady who always brings my food. The lady arrived shortly, and I could smell a distant smell of baked beans from the plate in her hand. I knew with no doubt that's what she brought. "Good morning," she greeted, her head bowed. "Morning. What's up for breakfast?" I asked, and she sighed heavily before replying. "Bacons and eggs," she said, and I smiled at her before collecting the plate from her. I devoured the food angrily, and I handed the plate back to her. She gave me the water she had brought along, and I gulped it down. "Do you take Eric as food to her room?" I asked curiously because since the day we both started having arguments and me being in this pack, she would always take Eric as food to her room, but I doubt if that's what would happen. I had always wanted to know why she doesn't eat at the dining hall like before. "No, I didn't. She went to the dining hall to eat," I heard her say, and I nodded. I couldn't help but feel something fishy going on. I knew with no doubt that my words had made her angry. I knew that she had to make some decisions, and I knew whatever they were, they weren't going to sit well with me. I felt a shiver of nervousness run down my spine. "I need a favor from you," I said to her, and she looked at me with curiosity. "I will do it if it's in my power," she replied, and I offered her a smile. "I want you to take me to your former Alpha's house. I need to see them for something important," I said, and I couldn't help but think of why I was telling her that. "When are you leaving?" she asked, and I stood up from the bed. "We can leave right now," I said, and she smiled at me before leading the way. We walked out of the house, and the pack members mumbled their greetings to me, and all I did was nod at them. Soon we were at her parents' house, and I was left alone. I stared at the door of Eric as parents, complimenting them on what to do. I knew that I couldn't just go in there without knowing what to say. I knew that Cynthia was the one who was hurt the most by my behavior, but Stephen understood. I knocked gently on the door, and the door pulled open almost immediately. "Finally, we have someone who visits us," Cynthia said sarcastically before opening the door. And she smiled, but it vanished immediately when she saw me. I had thought that she knew that I was at the door and that she wasn't angry at me anymore, but I was wrong because the smile vanished. I felt sad that I was the one who made her sad. "What the hell are you looking for here?" she asked angrily, and I sighed heavily, not knowing what to say. "Who is at the door?" I heard Stephen's voice say something, and before I could reply, Cynthia cut in. "Nobody is at the door," she replied, and I couldn't help but feel sad that I had made a lovely woman angry. I knew she was still angry with me for the way I yelled at her yesterday. "I'm sorry for yesterday. It wasn't my intention. I was carried away by my anger. I'm sorry for what I said and did. I'm willing to take any punishment of yours. I am going to bed your daughter next, and I hope she forgives me," I said with tear-filled eyes. The cold shoulders I was being given aren't helping me at all. It felt like I was being strangled by something or someone. "It's okay. I understand," she said, hugging me, and I was caught off guard by that. I couldn't understand or bring myself to know that she had already forgiven me. Thanks so much. "You don't know what this really means to me," I said, disengaging from the hug, and she smiled. "You can come in," she said, and I walked into the house, admiring every decoration in the room. I was awed by what I saw, and I couldn't take my eyes off the house. "Look who we have here," I heard a voice say, and I jumped up in shock. I looked in the direction of the voice, and it turned out to be Stephen. He stared at me with a frown. "Good morning," I said, and he rolled his eyes. "What do you want? I thought you said you don't want anything to do with us." He said it in a taunting manner, and I couldn't help but smile. "Sorry about all that. I overreacted yesterday." I was frustrated by my anger. I said again, and he smiled. "Come over here and give me a hug," he said, and I walked up to him and he hugged me tight. Chapter 21. Apologies, Jerome. I was directed to Erica's office by her parents. They had welcomed me with open hands, and I'm glad for that. I had thought that they would hold me responsible for what happened yesterday, but am glad they didn't. I don't know what I would have done if they had hated me for yesterday, and am glad they didn't. Here I am on my way to her office. Everybody I saw on my way greeted me with respect. I couldn't help but be happy about all this, but, at the same time, nervous. And nervous about what Erica would say or do to me if she sees me. I could feel my hands shaking in anticipation. I knew that what she would do was yell at me as soon as I saw her. I knew she would want to vent her anger on me, and I'll be glad if she does. I will gladly take any punishment of hers. I'll do everything in my power to see her happy. And if it has to be that she hurts me to be happy after what I've done to her, then I'll gladly take that. I can do anything to see her smile. I will do everything in my power. I want to make sure I'm the reason for her smile. I doubted if she was going to let me get close to her after yesterday. I disgraced her in front of her parents and some pack members. I knew that she only wanted to prove her innocence, but I made things worse. I knocked on the door of her office, which was transparent. I couldn't help but gasp at the sight in front of me. There in front of me is my friend with another man. His mouth was close to his, and it looked like they were talking. The person I saw with her was no other than her beta. She had brought her bait along with her when she came to take me to her pack. Erica wasn't aware of my presence, but the man seems to be aware, and he seems to be doing all that to make me jealous. And I won't lie, I am. I opened the door, and I entered her office angrily. What the hell is going on here? I asked angrily, staring at the man with so much hatred in my heart. Can't you see we are busy? The man said, and Erica wanted to stand up to shout at me, but the man whispered something into her ear, making her giggle. I couldn't believe what was happening. I stood frozen at the doorpost, unable to do a thing. I had thought that she was lying when she said she doesn't care anymore and that I could do whatever I wanted. I had thought she was joking, but now it seemed she was not. I knew that there was no way I was going to let him have her. I'm not going to allow that. I'm not going to watch her be with another man. And then I'll realize the pain she was feeling while I was with Mabel. I now know her grief, and I couldn't help but feel sorry for her. What do you want? Erica asked this time, and it seems like she first it out. I feel sad knowing I was the cause of it. I came here to apologize, I stated while trying to keep my calm. Then get that done, she said in a demanding tone, and I couldn't help but feel slightly hurt. I now know how it feels to be given the cold shoulder. I wasn't in my right state of mind yesterday and really sorry for what I said. I don't mean any of it, I stated truthfully with an apologetic look on my face, hoping that she would believe me, but she didn't. Okay. Since you are done with your apology, you can leave, she said, and I bowed my head sadly before walking out of the office. I saw her snuggle up to the man, and she brought his face closer to hers. It was like they wanted to kiss each other. I couldn't bear to watch it anymore, and with that, I rushed toward my room immediately, not waiting to look at the horrible sight. I have made up my mind to go to her room and stay there till she comes home, and there I'll express my feelings about it not sitting well with me while seeing other men with her. I walked into my room, and I sulked for hours, thinking of how to tell her everything on my mind. I don't know what to do or say. I knew that whatever I said might be wrong, and I was starting to get nervous about it. I knew that there was nobody in this pack that I trusted and that things might go south. I would have asked someone for help, but seeing that I'm alone in this pack makes it worse. I knew that if I waited for someone to guide me, it might be too late, and I don't want that. I don't want to lose her even if she were to resent me for changing my mind. So be it. I'm not ready to lie to her. I don't know how I developed this feeling of not seeing her with another man, but it erupted. The fact is that I had never seen her with a man before, and seeing how close they were today, I knew that things were just starting to bloom between the both of them. I knew that all this was supposed to be coming from me. I knew that I have a fiancé at my school before, but I'm ready to break off the engagement for her sake. I'm ready to do everything possible to make her mine. It was evening already, and Erica was now back from her office. I had seen her come toward her room, and there I stood with a huge smile on my face. I was praying and hoping that she wouldn't yell at me or do something that I might regret. All I can do is wish for the best to happen. I knew that this might be early for me, but then I realized that I might lose her if I don't say what is on my mind. She opened the door of her room, and immediately a smile was plastered on her face. She stared around her room in awe, and I couldn't help but be happy. My face was contorted into a frown, knowing that she might think this is from the man they were both with in the office. I had decorated the room with flowers and many sorts of things. The room was being illuminated by the light bulb that I had put in it, and it kept changing everything. "Samuel, I know this is your handwork. Come out from where you are," I heard her say excitedly, and I felt my heart ache. I couldn't believe what I heard. I knew that something was going on between them, and with my guess, I knew that things wouldn't go as I had planned if I didn't say what was on my mind. I had planned all this hours ago, and I had fixed everything where it was supposed to be. I had promised to make today memorable for her, but it seems like it might get ruined by Erica. "Samuel, is this the surprise you have for me?" I heard her express excitement. I feel my heart beating fast, not knowing what to expect from her. I knew that things won't be as I thought because she had thought that I was someone else. Chapter 22, Surprised Erica. I was glad that the plan that I made out was working, and not only that it has made him want to confess his love. I knew that he was the one who decorated the room because I had been told by Samuel that anything can happen in the room and that if I feel anything strange I should mention his name and that it would make him want to say what was on his mind. I knew that Jerome was only playing to what Samuel wanted. He is going to say all that is in his mind, and nobody is forcing him to. I feel happy that he is going to express his feelings to me, and not only that but because of a trick Samuel advised me to do. I wasn't willing to do so, but I knew that nothing is bad in trying. I don't want to seem desperate and I want to stay away from him, but seeing the way I was advised by Samuel, I have no choice but to give in. I knew that whatever I was doing would be the last thing I will do to get him to come closer to me. I knew that having to pull the trick on him isn't good, but there was nothing I could do about that. "I thought you said you will show me the surprise tonight, in the wood where you had wanted us to have our first date." I said, but it didn't hear any reply. I felt my heart seize immediately while thinking that I had made a big mistake, but I decided to continue. "Samuel, what are you waiting for? I'm ready for your surprise," I said excitedly. I was happy that his plans worked. I had sniffed in the air immediately I entered the room, and I couldn't help but feel excited about the whole thing. I knew that having this going as I had planned made me forget all that he had done. I had forgiven him, and immediately he came to my office, and seeing the way he reacted, Samuel knew that he would definitely do something to express his love for me. I was almost entering the room when I felt a weird smell hit my nose. "I'm sorry, Erica. This isn't Samuel," I heard a voice said behind me, and I turned to look at the direction of the person, and it turned out to be Jerome. "Jerome, what the hell are you doing?" I asked with a fake hint of anger, and he shifted backwards with an hurt on his face. My heart fluttered immediately, and I couldn't help but smile at him. "I just want to tell you what I feel about you," he said, and was about continuing when I cut in again, but this time with anger. "You don't have to do all this. I know how you feel about me," I said with a pause while smiling widely. "I know you hate me. Then why are you doing all this?" I heard him said, jumped back with fear. I looked at him and I noticed that his hands were at his back. He has been hiding his hands since the time he entered the room. I feel like something is in his hands. I knew the way I was pushing him might not want him to say what was on his mind, but I'm ready to do that. "Not that. The thing is that," I heard him say. "That what is it?" I asked with annoyance. I'm not support of the way he was talking, but I knew I had to use patience, but the patience I was having is starting to vanish. "The thing is that I hate seeing you with him. I don't know your relationship, but it would break us apart. I don't like seeing you with other guys, and he isn't an exemption," he said, and I scoffed. "You can't tell me what to do since you have a fiancée already, and you stated it, that you love her. He didn't do anything or say anything to you about it. Why bothering me?" I stated clearly. I was annoyed with the way he was talking. Doesn't he know that's what he had been doing to me? He had been sending letter and I'm aware about it, but I do nothing. I couldn't help but feel angry. Is this the way to say his love for me? He is nothing but an old fool. Is he trying to propose to me in the way those aged men do? He lacked romance, and I couldn't help but wonder if this is the same man I'm to be with for my entire life. I know that this might sound weird to you, but I love you. I have been thinking of you lately, and I don't know what's happening to me. I can't get the image of you away from my head. I won't force my love on you. You can be with whoever you want, he said sadly, and turned to leave the room. His face was filled with sadness, and I felt my heart flutter. I couldn't believe that he would someday say this to me. I had thought that I cannot be with my mate, but it all seems wrong. I was surprised to see that the plan Samuel gave me worked. I had always thought that the plan would not work, but it did now. I'm glad for that. You don't have to leave now. At least you can wait to hear my reply. It would let you get over me, I said with smiles beaming from each corner of my face. There is this man I love, but I don't think he loves me back. I had fallen for him the moment I set my eyes on him. I said, and I looked at him. He had a sad smile plastered on his face as I said. I knew he wasn't happy with what I am saying, but he still waited to know who he was. He just returned to me and told me he loves me. I said, and I saw him heave a deep sigh with teary eyes. Won't you ask who he is? I asked while staring at him with a smirk. What's the point of me knowing? He replied, and I rolled my eyes. The person is you. I have fallen in love with you at first sight, but you didn't look my way, but now you do, and not only the way you proposed to me, I said with a bright smile, and he stared at me with a surprised look on his face. Chapter 23, Happy Erica. I was feeling happy that all I could think of for the next day was what had happened. I couldn't believe it. Especially because Samuel had helped me out. I feel like I owe him. I couldn't be more happy. And am willing to express how I feel right now. I knew that he would be happy seeing that my mate and my love for him are starting to grow. Jerome had prepared a place where we could have our first date, and it was memorable. I was glad things worked out this way, but I'm still worried. I'm worried about him going back to Mabel, but I knew that was not possible. But still, I feel insecure about the thoughts. Here I am in my room, sitting on my bed with many thoughts. I stood up from my bed and did my morning activities. I made my way out of my room after a while, and I headed towards Jerome's room. And there I found him awake doing push-ups. I doubt if he always works out that early in the morning, because his body doesn't look like that of someone who works out daily. I knew that he had an incredible body, but if he kept working out daily, he would have a perfect figure. He would look intimidating to others, and they wouldn't ever try moving toward him. Sometimes I wondered if he was an omega because of his well-built body. He might have the aura of an omega, which I doubt he is. Good morning. I greeted him and sighed heavily before standing up from where he was doing the push-ups with sweat dripping down his body. I couldn't help but feel the need to ogle his body. Good morning. How was your night? He asked as he heaved heavily before turning to go. He was shirtless, and I saw something on his back that caught my attention. I have been seeing this since yesterday, but I always forgot about it. Fine. Jerome, how do you get the tattoo on your back? I questioned him, staring at him curiously, and I couldn't help but want to know how he got the tattoo. The tattoo symbolizes a pure breed of lichen. I knew that it might sound weird, and that's why I had asked him about it. It had been on my back since the day I was born, he said, and I sighed heavily, knowing that it might sound weird if I told him that he was lichen. He might not want to believe me, and with that, I kept my mouth shut. I knew that if I wanted to tell him anything like this or show him something, I would need to have concrete evidence. I knew that finding something like that right now isn't advisable, but remembering an alpha, I doubt if he'll be mated to an omega. I had always thought that my mate would be someone powerful, but when I saw that it was an omega, I knew that it was the moon goddess' handiwork, and all I could do was accept him as my mate. I knew the moon goddess had plans for me and my mate, and I'm glad for that. He'll be the one to unlock his powers, and that made me happy. Why are you asking? Though, he asked, looking at me with a raised eyebrow. I was speechless for a second, and I knew that if I didn't act or tread carefully, then I might get caught by him for what I was trying to dig up in his past. I like the tattoo, it's beautiful, and I'm curious to know where you got it done, I said, and he smiled before turning to look at me. "It'll be in the bathroom. I want to have my bath," he said, and I looked at the time and noticed that it was time yet for us to be at the dining hall. He took his clothes and a towel before walking into his bathroom. I was left alone, and all I could do was start thinking of a way to find out who he really was. I knew that if I had to get that done, I'd have to do it overnight since I'm always busy. I knew that if I were to schedule it during the day, then it would alter my work as the alpha. I looked around the place and I saw that there were a lot of letters from his fiancée, and I couldn't help but feel the fear that gripped me. I felt a knot tie in my stomach and I feel sweaty all of a sudden. I knew that his fiancée might be the cause of our breakup again, and I don't want that to happen. I knew how dangerous it is. It'll be a laughingstock if he was to leave me. I knew that his fiancée is capable of doing things, and I read through the letter, and it all contained how she loved him. It was while I was reading the letter that I noticed that he hasn't been replying to any of the letter. I was glad for that and I was out at ease. I shrugged it off my mind and I focused on waiting for him. After a while, he returned shortly, fully dressed. His clothes were on his body, and he had a dreamily smiling face. "We are going to the dining hall together," I said, and he sighed heavily before nodding his head timidly. We walked towards the dining hall, and the pack members we met on our way greeted us, and soon I saw Samuel and Victoria walking up to me with a smile. I felt Jerome's body stiffen, and a cold look was on his face as he stared at Samuel. "You don't have to worry. That is Samuel, my brother and his mate," I whispered to his ear, and his body became relaxed. "So you lied to me, but your lie made me confess my feelings," he said, and I chuckled. We walked into the dining hall, and he sat beside me. We ate our food in silence, and then I left the dining hall with him. I had told a pack member to give him a tour of the pack since he would be staying in this one. I had always thought that was not necessary, but seeing that he is to stay in this pack, I had to let him have a tour around the pack house. Soon he would be made the alpha if this pack made me the Luna. I won't tolerate anybody calling me Luna because I'm not one. I would prefer to be called the female alpha instead. Here I am in my office, sorting out the pack work. My mind isn't on what I'm doing, but instead it keeps tossing to and fro, and that is because of the tattoo on his back. I tried hard to concentrate, and after a while was able to do so. I walked back home in the evening, and I walked into my room. I have a cold shower, and I walked toward Jerome's room. I saw him waiting for me at his doorstep while staring directly at my door. I didn't know he was there when I got to my doorstep. We ate, and after that everybody went their separate ways. Jerome and I had a nice time talking, and after that we both walked into our rooms. I also walked into my room, and I waited for a moment before walking out of the room. I walked toward the library, and I started searching for books about lichen. I carried all the books to my room, and I set them down on my table. I started reading the book. I read the book until the next morning, and it was then that I was able to finish a book. There is a sketch in the book that has a drawing of the tattoo that was on Jerome's body. Chapter 24 shocked Mabel. It has been days now since I had been sending letters to Jerome. I was now worried about him, hoping and praying that nothing would happen to him. I pray for him to be safe and sound. I was praying on a daily basis, but what I always got was the bird returning without the letter. I thought that he must have seen my messages and might not be in a place to reply. But then I remembered how hot-tempered his friend was. I knew that if anything is wrong then it has to be the handiwork of his mate. I knew that his roommate hated him, and I wish I could do something about it. But I couldn't. I have always been scared my whole life, but Jerome coming into my life has made things change. I knew for a fact that no matter what happened, he would always be mine. But nowadays I was starting to doubt that he would be mine someday. I thought that having a fiancé engaged should have helped calm my mind, but it didn't. I feel the need to see him, but I knew that there was no way that would happen. The last time I wrote to him about him being thrown into the cold room, his reply was that he didn't want me to get worried about him. I feel emotional knowing that he still cares about me, even though we are far from each other. I had the confidence that our love would make him survive. He told me that he had been treated by his friend, who had saved him from the cold room. I was confused because I didn't know what she was up to. I had thought that she would reject him just like she had promised. But what I wasn't expecting was that he would be taken to her pack forcefully by her mate. I was sitting on my bed, awake in my thoughts, with fear etched on my face. I was praying that he would survive wherever he was. I knew that his having survived the cold room was a miracle and that he was strong. I knew he was strong enough to withstand anything that was thrown at him by his mate. I had faith in our love, and I knew that our love would conquer those who wanted to destroy us. I was still lost in thoughts when I heard the door of my room open with such force. I turned to look in the direction of the person, and it turned out to be Sandra, my best friend. Mabel, you are still here. I heard Sandra's voice jolt me out of my thoughts. I stared at her confused, not knowing what to do or say. I stared at her with confusion written in my eyes. She rolled her eyes, and she clicked her tongue impatiently. What the hell is going on? I asked, and she sighed heavily while shaking her head with disgust. I cowed and understand who she had directed the disgusting face at. And with that, I looked around with a worried expression on my face. I knew whatever had made her like this would do more to me. I knew that whatever I was about to hear would be like a huge bomb to me. I told you that you shouldn't trust Jerome, he is nothing but a liar. She was saying, but I used my hand to grab her mouth immediately with anger in my eyes. How do you say a thing like that, hun? Jerome isn't like other men outside, I said, and she rolled her eyes before removing my hands from her mouth. Haven't you heard about the rumors going around that your fiancé had fallen in love with his mate, and not only that they were planning on marking and mating themselves soon? She asked, and I felt my head become foggy all of a sudden. I knew that there was no way he would fall for his mate after all she had done to him. I have faith in him that he can never cheat on me. Stop saying such things, they are just mere rumors about them. There is no way he would want to accept her. He can't love someone who has hurt him. He won't ever allow something like this to happen. He is faithful and would always be. He can't fall in love with her because she is nothing but a real devil, I said hastily, finding it hard to believe what she had just said. I knew that whatever she was saying might be right because his mate didn't reject him and their mate bond might have made that possible. But I'm not ready to admit that. I'm not ready to admit that my fiancé might have fallen in love with him. My mind was in a disarray, and all I could think of was the both of them together. And as I kept on thinking about it, an image of the both of them together holding hands popped up in my head. I knew that if I didn't stop thinking about it, I might break down. I can't believe that you are saying this. Don't you know what he will become if he gets mated to her? He will be an alpha, of course. And why would he want to lose that golden opportunity because of you? I knew that if you were in his shoes, you wouldn't hesitate to accept him. This is power we are talking about. You think love can conquer his test of greed? That can happen because he is long gone, Sandra said with a dramatic pause while placing her hand on her waist dramatically. The atmosphere in the room isn't something to write home about, and that's because all my emotions were channeled into my auras. I knew that what he had just said was right, and that made things hard for me. There is a chance he would see something like that and reject it. I knew that if it happened to be me, I would accept her. I knew that there was nothing people could do about greed. I knew that what Sandra was saying was right, and am ready to do something about it. But first I need to know if it's true. I knew that he would tell the truth about this situation because he wouldn't want to be in the middle of both of us. I would advise you to move on with your life, Sandra concluded after staring at me with a sad smile on her face. You don't have to worry about that. I need to confirm if this is true from him, and then he'll know what to do next, I said, and she rolled her eyes. I pray something bad won't happen to you after hearing it from him yourself, Sandra said, and I looked at her with a glare on my face, which made her avert her eyes. I knew that all she wanted for me was the best, but she cowed and controlled my life like it was her own. I took out the ink and a blank sheet of paper. I wrote to him, Jerome, are all the rumors true? If it's true, how can you do this to me? You have promised me a lot of things, but you went ahead and broke them. I have always been faithful to you, but what do? You backstab me. How can you fall in love with someone who you have always hated, someone who took you away from me forcefully? You fell in love with someone who doesn't care about you. You fell in love with the person who had you thrown in the cold room. The person who doesn't care if you live or die. I knew that this was your reason for not replying to my letters. You should reply to this one before I come to the pack and get myself killed by your mate. Tears were dripping down my face as I wrote the letter. I knew he had fallen in love with Erica, and that was because every rumor that I had been hearing from Erica's pack is always true. The last time I heard a rumor, it was about him being tortured in the cold room, and when I heard that, I asked him, and he told me the truth. He doesn't want me to be aware of that, and I knew this must also be the case now. I knew that he didn't want me to know about it. He had forgotten about all this. I knew that I would be a laughingstock in the pack because everyone would want to show their concern about me. I knew I would be the leader of the pack. I won't be able to move freely for a while in the pack. I knew that I would have restricted movement, and I don't want that. I knew that all the pack members were already aware of this. I knew that there was no way I could avoid this. I sent the letter to him through the bird, and I sat on the bed waiting patiently for his reply. I knew that he'd reply soon because of my last statement. I saw the bird fly in through the window, and I walked up to it. I removed a letter from its leg, and as I read through the letter, I felt my legs become weak. I couldn't help but let the tears I had been holding in me since morning fall. I feel my head pounding heavily. First it was my mate who rejected me, and now my fiancé, whom I had thought we would grow old together, has left me for his mate.